It's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by.
Hello everybody and a very warm welcome. It's nice to be back with the Champ.ie podcast. We're counting down to the Cheltenham Festival and we have welcomed the rain and how in the last week. There's buckets of the stuff both sides of the Irish Sea ahead of a weekend which is going to give us more clues with the Red Mills Day at Gowran Park and this other side of the Irish Sea, Ascot, a Grade 1, and the Kingwell Hurdle, which is should have been sponsored by Last Chance Saloon Society. I think it's sponsored by Matchbook, and that is at Wincanton. And delighted to introduce you to the 2 wise men who were the other 2 failed shortlisted candidates for the editorship of Clairvoyance Monthly. And they've been tipping winners for fun for years, and the fact they're still doing it tells you all you need to know about their track record. No sign of any retirement yet for the Irish Field's finest young upcoming reporter who tips better than my mother-in-law, and you can take that either way he wants. I'm delighted to have Mr. Ronan Groome in town, and the incomparable Mr. Barry Doyle, who is a man of few words, and I often get blushing. They're the 2 who will be responsible for the next half an hour or so, guiding you through the weekend. But of course, we want you to get involved. And at the end, we've got something new which we started last week, and that is we're inviting you to put together a 5 cast, and that's 5 horses for the weekend. And we're going to talk about 4 races. So you have 1 from each of the 4 races we put up. And then you have a free-for-all with race 5. The only stipulation is it must be on Saturday. That is the only stipulation. And, of course, the weather already playing a hand with Dundalk Friday night, of all things, being called off. So let's start with Gowran Park. I think it will be testing, although it has dried out a little bit, I suspect, in the last couple of days. There's been a lot of rain around. It's been leaking Gowran Park more often than the manager Eddie Scally's beloved Leeds United of late. But the Red Mills trial hurdle at 220 has a field of 7. The likely favourite, I would think, will be Sadly, even though he was pulled up last time. But we've got a couple of rising stars in against him in the shape of Calixios for Rachel Blackmore and Henry de Bromhead, and Teahupoo, for whom Robbie Power is on board for Gordon Elliott. So are you going with the present or the future, Mr. Groome?
A nice way to put the race, because I'm most definitely going with the present. I don't think these 2 5-year-olds are up to much at all. I really don't. In general, I think 5-year-olds have it hard in open company, but these 2 have been kept to their own age group for both the races so far. They've raced solely against each other. And the 2 races that they raced in, there'll be faster pony races than on the Strand this season. They've just been really, really slowly run. I don't think they've learned anything from them. Teahupoo looked impressive at Naas, but I think that Calixios is a little unfit there, and Teahupoo just quickened up better off a slow pace, and they went slow again at Limerick, and there wasn't much between them. There's only a couple of lengths this time. They haven't been tested at all, and they haven't really been in a proper race in open company, and this is it. Sadly, amazingly, was available to back at 10-1 in the anti-post betting for this race. I think a few people thought he might go for the Boyne Hurdle. Obviously, that was a huge price. I think he'll be favourite by the time they come to the off. Look, he has a couple of runs to put by, but I think there was excuses for both of them. He actually hit into a rail as he was walking out for the Hatton's Grace. Willie Mullins reported that subsequently after the race and said he shouldn't even have ran there if he could have it back. And then a couple of, I think a faller hampered him in the Galmoy, and he made a few mistakes after that, was pulled up. He's back to his bread and butter here. It's 2 miles. He's a course and distance winner as well. He's rock solid. He's 162, and he's actually getting weight off the 2 5-year-olds. I just can't. If Salday runs to within 6 or 7 pounds of that rating, and he might run right up to it, he'll win this easily. I'd even have Durasso ahead of the 2 5-year-olds. I think he could beat the 2 of them. He's a solid yardstick. And is often underrated. So Saldia definitely for me against the 2. I think these 2 will do well to get within 10 lengths of Honeysuckle in the champion hurdle. So yeah, definitely Saldier for me on Saturday.
Barry, a very simple question: agree or disagree?
Disagree. It's all about the future, Mike Vince, and the present, because I think these two. I'm with the 5-year-olds in this contest. I see there's plenty of money, all right, for Saldier. Ronan has mentioned, I suppose, excuses, but this horse for me, that we're talking about stepping him up to stay in distances, that hasn't worked out. Seems like an afterthought, albeit. Look, the support is obviously a positive for him. But if you look at, Ronan's talked about times and that type of thing, look back to last year's, I suppose, Triumph Hurdle. The form hasn't worked out as bad as, I suppose, people may suggest. And I feel like I've been down this road before supporting 5-year-olds, and Ronan Groome was all against it. But if you look at the race, I suppose, that Ronan was referring to at Limerick, it was on very deep ground. Teopu, made most of the running that day. They went steady enough. It was on very testing ground at Limerick. The pair have actually pulled a nice bit clearer Slip of the Tongue, who's come out and backed up the form and was a full value winner, I suppose, midweek at Punchestown. I get this is going to be another step up. I think the two of them are capable of stepping up against their elders here. And I'd be actually coming down on the side of Calixios in this. I think he travelled in that race at Limerick, where the two of them came clear, Slip of the Tongue. He travelled much like the best horse in the race. Henry's horses weren't going great at the time. I suppose Henry's horse, he's up to 19% now in terms of a strike rate in the last 14 days. So maybe signs that his yard is coming back to form. He travelled like the best horse for a long period in the race. And look, he still gives £2 here to Teopu, but I'd be willing to take the chance that he can reverse form. It is soft ground. It mightn't be as testing as Limerick. And I think he may represent the value at 5-2 for this contest. So Calixios for me, Mike. And I think I disagree with Mr. Groome in the opener.
And of course, it's interesting. Saturday ahead for Joseph O'Brien, 2 horses of JP McManus's. And Luke Dempsey rides Darasso, who won the Limestone Lad, because Mark Walsh has journeyed to Ascot to ride Fakir Dudery, of which more in a little while. And there's an old mag called Felix Deji, who on his day would have had very much to say in this. Interesting Red Mills trial hurdle. What about the steeplechase? We're going to hear from, of course, one of the great Irish characters. Didn't ever get the job with Listen with Mother for some reason. But it's delightful to say that Mick Winters will join us on Champ.ie shortly. And he's got one of 5 in the Red Mills Chase. The talk this week has been of Mellon and the Grand National. I don't know whether it's one I should send the mother-in-law out on, because I had him down as an unsafe conveyance. But he is probably going to go off favourite here. Barry, what do you think about the chase?
Well, first of all, Mellon has had 2 hard races this season, hasn't he? If you're to look, I suppose, at on the figures, he gets a bit of weight as well off the likes of Chatham Street Lad. On official ratings, he takes all the beating. But he has had 2 tough races, and he's coming back here. He's a good constitution, this horse. He's had, I suppose, I thought when I was looking at his profile, I was trying to figure out how many runs he's actually had in his life. It's not as many as you think. He's only had 11 runs over fences. But I just have always felt as though, and maybe it's heart ruling head here, but I've always thought that Chatham Street Lad is a graded horse, and he's given weight away. He's up against it here. He hasn't run in 91 days. Obviously he was running a big race, I felt, in the Betfair Chase up the 3 miles. Not sure the ground would have totally suited him that day, and he obviously picked up a wound in running, and we haven't seen him since. Mick thinks he has him back right. It wouldn't be an awful, I suppose, a bullish shout, but maybe there's juice in the price at 4-1. With Chatham Street Lad, I don't think there's much else in the race. Ronan Groome is probably going to talk up Daily Tiger, but Chatham Street Lad for me is, I suppose, at 4-1. I'd certainly be interested in him in the without market. I think he'll run a good race, and maybe he's worth a chance at 4-1. Chatham Street Lad. The other one I will mention, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did outrun his odds in here, is Sizing Potsy. Sizing Potsy, the yard are in a horrendous form. 0% strike rate in the last 14 days. But Sizing Potsy, he is lightly raced. He's stepping up in trip again. Was ridden to place behind Energumene over 2 miles in the hilly way. And was outpaced a little bit, I thought, at Christmas. So a step up in trip may suit him. But the yard form would have to be a major concern for Sizing Potsy. But I'd be willing to take Mellon on, I think. I'm considering it's 2 hard races.
Well, of course, you mentioned Sizing Potsy, 3rd behind Energumene. And the horse that got closest to him that day at Cork was a horse called Daily Tiger. Mr. Groome. Well, we've swapped over Ronan Groome for a more up-to-date model. And he's paid his Wi-Fi bill. So that's why you're looking at the short, fat window rather than the long, thin one. I was just mentioning about, if you're talking about Sizing Potsy finishing behind Energumene, the horse that split the pair of them was called Daily Tiger. But are you in the Mellon camp on this one?
I am in the Mellon camp. And a surprise, Barry's going for Chatham Street Lad with his old pal Mick Winters. That was about as predictable as anything. So, look, Mellon's been called a lot of names. And I remember on the Cheltenham preview we did last year that the lads were laughing at me when I put him up for the Ryanair. And look, he gets called names, and he's some people think he's ungenuine, but you have to remember that since his beginner's chase, every single race he's running has been in a grade 1. He's probably not up to grade 1 level. He's probably just below it. He's run some big races at Leopardstown in behind Absolute Tard. He's run 3rd in a couple of John Durkins over 2.5 miles. I don't think any of these would get placed in a John Durkin, to be honest with you. And Mellon is actually getting weight off Chatham Street Lad here. So if he's going to win a race, I think this has got to be it. I think he warrants odds-on quotes. And I don't know about the Grand National, as you said at the top, Mike, but definitely over 2.5 miles, getting weight off Chatham Street Lad and a couple of others. I do respect Daily Tiger. I think he's a nice chaser, and he's run quite well over hurdles a couple of times this season. But Mellon, I think this could be a confidence booster he needs, and going into the spring for biggest targets. Look, he's 164 here. If he runs near that, I think he'll win. So
it's Mellon for Mr. Groome. And of course, if we take Michael O'Leary at his absolute straight base of that statement, the top 2 not going to run at the moment. That means Mellon sitting possibly. You're going to be looking at the top weight for the Grand National running at Gowran on Saturday. But let's not go there. We've got better things to do with our time. And one of them is to hear from a man who never fails to deliver goods for us. It's far better than listening to any bishop's homily, and even the Brina would struggle to keep up with this man. Delighted to say that we're joined on Champ.ie by the incomparable Mick Winters. And here is a Winter's Tale in conversation with Barry Doyle.
We're becoming Chatham Street Lads' biggest fans on the podcast. Mick, he's down to go again after a break, a mid-season break. Since his run in the Betfair. How is he?
He was very probably lucky that his career wasn't finished. I suppose he got a minor injury, would be very lucky. You're talking fractions and also the skin in the back of his tendon. And if the tendon is damaged or cut at the end of his career, he'll be home then. It is a bit, but he's in great form, miraculously. Maybe I suppose I probably said my prayers or something happened right anyway. The horse isn't good off them, but we've let him up to it.
And what happened to Mick in the Betfair?
Yeah, you see, I'd say the fences over there are very solid, and the birch is fresh birch. And if it's fresh birch, there's no giving it really. And the top last fence was very solid, so it was double the width of we said the rest of the fences. And he was coming under pressure, you see, and it's like anybody, when you're under pressure, your brain is thinking a little bit, and he wanted to cut the top of the fence to get the other side easier than having to give a big jump, but he knew that this belt is so solid that if he cut into it, he'd probably somersault. So he actually tried to launch himself over it, and he didn't get there, and he landed on top of the fence. And the only reason I can say that was the belt is because if you hit it with a back leg, if you hit the front leg with a back leg, you wouldn't just cut the skin, you'd do that damage. So it was probably belt to cut the skin. very lucky, very lucky.
Must have been happy with the way he was travelling and jumping right throughout, I suppose, down the back.
Well, we went out for the race, prior race as well, and we watched the horses jumping, and we walked from one side of the track to the long narrow track, so you could go from one side to the opposite side. And we felt the horses running, and they were jumping quite well, even though we were kind of frightened the distances looking at them in the ground. But they were handy quite well, and they were cutting in a little bit to the ground, even though it looked too quick for us, right? So, look, you have to take it, there is a balance in there. You have to travelling over and you run if you can. So we beat our lip and took our chances. You know.
It's soft ground at Gowran Park this weekend. He's given a bit of weight to Mellon. On official ratings, he looks to have a big challenge on his hands, but I suppose, how happy are you with him heading into what looks like a competitive Red Mills Chase?
Well, I put it this way, Joe. We always thought he was always, the reason we always say he went to softer ground, because we're meeting horses that are very good horses on quick ground, right? In Cheltenham in March, when he was 4, he was meeting horses and the ground was fairly quick. And just safe enough to be thought we take out that you bite your lip and you're not 100% over you. If you don't take chances with horses and racing, whatever, and circumstances, you don't survive. But anyway, he ran a blinder in Cheltenham and finished 4th, and that Ascot for Lawrence has an awful lot done since. So we were very happy that he came home and he ran in what we call ideal ground for a steer. I would think he's standing in the fairway. But he didn't beat a lot in the day, he stayed, but he jumped and travelled very well at half speed for 3 miles. But my concern and my deep conviction on the horse, his perfect round is soft round and slightly on the heavier side of soft. But I think he's very plain inside deep heavy ground, so it would be concerning for me Saturday that the ground is very deep, and I think he's playing. He's a bit like the Grand Horse inside when he gets too heavy. I saw it in Melbourne before, Ronald Pump kind of exposed us a bit in a whole race and stuff like that. So I'm hoping I'll be proved wrong, but if he runs a good race and if he gets into the money and he finishes top place and runs very well, we'll be coming out very happy. But if you're inside in a 5-horse race, Millen is raised at 160 something, and we're 10 pounds below us, and you'll give me a 3, but in theory he'd be for 14 net. So I've been trying to say Millen is running his race, he must jump his fences, he must do everything right for himself. If we can run a blinder behind him and finish in the money, we'll be coming out very happy. And as you see, when you stop below to stop the horse, he's over and thinking, so he can go do his job. As regards the training and preparation for the race, we have a lot done. We're happy enough with the horse. We think he's in great form, but I think he's a bit lazy in heavy ground. I think it would be very heavy, but it might inconvenience his opposition a good bit as well. So we have to balance all that. But if I got one serious racehorse galloping, I have to say we're hitting out there spot on. So even if it ends up that we run a very good race and the race is a perfect race for going top up, I will be delighted.
Is the plan to head to Cheltenham?
You should be asking me this question maybe after Saturday, but at the moment this is supposed to be a prep race for Cheltenham, and speaking to the owners, they said that if the horse jumps off there, they're going to ice galloping, he's lying in there from the 4th, and he finishes back and he's within firing distance. I think their aspirations after drive on for Cheltenham. You would be going into the race with an open mind. I just say a small bit of feature of the ground. Like, I know he won in Limerick in heavy, but I think he's a horse to like. He won a lot of races and a lot of places in between ground. That'd be my preference for him. A little bit on the heavy side to slow down the pass horses and not too deep for the real out and out steers. So I think he's in between, but it's a 5-horse race. Let Millen be 12 pounds above us. £15 or whatever. Let him fight his own race, and if we can run a good race and maybe look if we came out second, I'd be very happy. But it's a prep race as such. We've loads to work with him. He tries in the race, so we are hiding to nothing really. We're in a good place, I'd say, really, with him. And he looks fine, and the horses are bleed now. I mean, I want to find the fight from them. And Rosemary, nice honest old mare, she was second today, and so at least it gives you a small bit of confidence to say horses are healthy, this fella's in good form. So we're not depending this to tell us where we're going, but we are to be definitely very positive for sure on a good race.
You know, the Ryanair, the Gold Cup is an entry also in the Grand National with weights during the week. I suppose sticking to Cheltenham, you know, you stepped up a trip to 3 miles. Would there be a preference for the Ryanair considering you ran the 2.5 mile race there last year?
My deep thinking is that the Ryanair was perfect, and if you went on, if you walked out and you ran into the money, whatever, if you're heading for the entry, he likes to extend it, and he likes to cover and things. Maybe the Tottenham trophy would be more realistic. I put it this way, too. Strange things happen in life, and you have to be always open-minded about everything. And there are politics and everything else, and we keep an open mind. entry. If you were hunting around for 3 miles or 4 miles too far, it's an awful long time to be hunting around. But I definitely would be jumping around where the gaps for me through the jumps and becoming very late. But I don't know that he's that distance horse. A lot of cash horses win in the entry and they win the National Crisp and all them. They're top 2 milers. But hopefully, I think 2.5 is his trip. He likes to be travelling nice and the bridle and to lose a bit of a run. If he gets tired, I think he might be what you call a door steer. There's little between steers and door steers. And maybe Opel might be that.
As always, we support Chatham Street lads. We've built up a bit of an affiliation with the horse. We've got plenty of features. Thanks very much once again. We'll see you down in Gowran. And sure, look, you never know if the horse wins. We might get an old bar, the bowl titty quill out of you.
My wife went to sing one line of a song. She said she get a pain in her head. So if you want, I might actually look to fulfill your request. But on another note, maybe for your readers, you didn't bother listeners. Congratulations on yourself and your marriage. And I hear that you're bringing your wife with you to Gowran Park. So didn't that we'll be inspecting or anything, but we'd like to say hello to him.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mick Winters. As I said, there is you write the definition of the word unique, and it was written for him. And let's hope that Chatham Street lad gives him a good day at Gowran. Well, let's move across the Irish Sea. Rain, buffeting, storms, you know what, but hopefully the racing will survive. An informative card at Ascot and 8 go to post for the Betfair Ascot Chase, a Grade 1, including last year's winner, Dashel Drasher. Quite a competitive contest, to be honest. Joseph O'Brien sending Fakir Doudari, and there's Venetia Williams in there with Fanny and Destruval lost in translation. Mr. Fisher, 2 for gold involved in that terrific race at Lingfield. Waiting patiently was a past winner of the race. And San Calvados. I don't know what you think about this, Ronan, but when I look at a race like this, I try and start by crossing out a few of the not a cat in what's his chance. I'm struggling to put a line through anything in this race with any confidence.
I think you're right, Mike. I think it's wide open. It's a good Grade 1, wide open. Everything has a chance. Fakir Doudari's amazingly was quite a decent price at the start of the week and has been well punted in. I can see what they're doing here. I think they're going to skip Cheltenham maybe this year, come here, and maybe Aintree will be the big target again. The Melling Chase there. They don't want to run against Allaho. I think he brings over the best form. The Irish form is solid enough, and they just don't want to run into Allaho again, which is very understandable. But having seen all the prices kind of disintegrate during the week, as I say, if you missed the wedding, don't go to the funeral. And I'm not
wanting to play Fakir Duduriz at the price he is now. I did want to get with Mr. Fisher. I'm a bit worried about the ground. You're quite good with the weather, Mike. I presume Ascot's going to stay soft. That the rain coming in will hit Ascot at some point.
Yeah, I mean there is absolutely no danger of. The only danger is whether Ascot goes any softer, because the Friday rain forecast is a bit like Barry Doyle's horoscope. It's a question of how many degrees of horror do you want in it. Yes, it's going to stay soft.
Okay.
But Mr. Fisher's got his fans. I'm one of them, actually.
Yeah, I think he might just be a bit better on quicker ground. I do like him though, and obviously the form is boosted quite a lot by the Eldorado Allen last week, and he beat him. He had too much pace for him at Kempton after being given like quite a difficult task first time out in the King George. Just got run off his feet there earlier on the seasonal debut. I think bits and pieces of form suggest he could be, the next best horse in here after Fakir Duduriz. He obviously ran close to Frodon at Sandown in the Ascot Chase, and he won a Peterborough Chase at Cheltenham quite impressively as well. But he's hit and miss, and I would like quicker ground from him. In that case, if it is going to be soft, I might just get with the Venetia, Charlie Deutsch kind of train here. They're having a sensational season, and I've always been a big fan of Fagnon d'Estraval. Big run the last day off a significant mark. I think they're running off 159 in handicap chase, and just got done by a sensational ride from Kevin Brogan on Phoenix Way. That's a horse going places as well. I think he could be one for a national. I think he's in the Grand National and maybe Cheltenham as well. He could be well handicapped horse going forward. And Fagnon d'Estraval, they pulled well clear that day. He's got the form around Ascot, and I think this 2-5 trip actually quite suits him. Soft ground will be a big plus. So he, just on the balance of that, the soft ground tips me towards him, but I am a fan of Mr. Fisher. But the soft ground just gets me to Fagnon d'Estraval here. I want them to take on Fakir at the price.
Yes, an amazing. Apparently Venetia took one out this week because the ground was too slow for one of hers, which is one of the stories that went under the radar this week. It must have been a very busy racing news week. Are you going to oppose Venetia, Barry? What do you think here?
It's Dashel Drasher's Gold Cup. And I'm surprised to see him on the drift for this one, Mike. 80% of his wins has come at Ascot. 4 of his 5 wins on the track has come at Ascot. He's back right-handed. I think he's took a step forward with every run this season. Had 3 runs, and the run that actually impressed me the most from Dashel Drasher was over hurdles when he won at Newbury. This horse, he's a great attitude. He digs in. He was beaten, just touched off on his last start on deep ground, going left-handed at Lingfield's Winter Millions. He was just touched off by 2 for Gold, who actually lines up here as well. But a step back in trip here, I'd say this is his Gold Cup. It is a competitive race without there being a real superstar in here. But he'd be the one for me. I think he represents great value at 9-2. And I think there might be bigger available out there on Dashel Drasher. There's a lot of question marks, as Ronan said. You start at the bottom or at the top, I suppose the bigger odds, waiting patiently. 2 for Gold. I don't know. I think a step back and trip, not sure that will suit. Lost in translation, in and out, isn't he? He beat Dashel Drasher here at Ascot earlier in the season. So maybe a step back to 2.5 miles will suit him as well. But he was, I suppose, failed to uphold his level of form, I felt, in the King George. Mr. Fisher in and out. Fagnon d'Estraval, you've mentioned the Venetia form. And Fakir Duduriz is just sick of the sight of Allaho's backside. So he's quite short, I feel, in here, the Irish Raider. And, he might come on again. Obviously the Ryanair, he could be being lined up for another tilt. I feel Dashel Drasher, this is his Gold Cup. And, at the moment, there's 8 runners in there, and he's cracking each way value, in my view, at that price.
Okay, that is the big race at Ascot. The big race at Wincanton might just have a slight effect on the Unibet Champion Hurdle, which is, of course, the first day of the festival in March. Only 4 runners and a match, realistically, between Goshen and Adagio. Adagio second in the Great Wood Hurdle, which for a 4-year-old as he was then was a terrific run, not been seen since, and taking on Goshen, who won this a year ago. Interesting race with Dan Skelton going in with Favois, and Dinabo Lad will be a big priced outsider. Ronan, I think it's fair to say that Adagio is one of the big hopes for the Brits in getting in amongst Honeysuckle and Company.
Yeah, again, he's just not going to be a fan of him being a 5-year-old. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh this year, given that it's probably not the strongest champion hurdle field, and he can get involved. He was in among the Irish in the Triumph Hurdle last season, and the form, as Barry said, has kind of stood up a bit. Obviously Zanahiyr isn't getting no match for Honeysuckle, and the two others, we'll see how they get on a Gowran, and I think they might struggle. Quilixios is there as well, obviously. So look, I'm slightly worried here about the big gap. I don't know what the story was there. Maybe you heard what the situation was with the pipes.
It was a slight injury, because the plan had been to go to the International back at Cheltenham, which would have been a month after the Great Wood. But
what was the injury, Mike?
Right. It was a slight injury problem.
What was the injury, Mike?
A slight muscle.
Yeah. Well, you'd be slightly concerned here. This is, to me, I'm not going to waffle on about this, is an absolute definition of a no-bet race. I don't really trust Goshen either. You obviously hosed up in this last season, and if gun to head, that would seem probably a realistic scenario to happen again. Not hose up, but to hold Adagio coming back off a big break on possibly soft ground might just be a bit too much to ask for him. And Goshen seemed okay the last day. I know Gary Moore is making bullish kind of noises about him again, but not for the first time during his career. Thinks he might have him back to something close to what he could be. But Goshen gun to head, but a complete no-bet race for me.
And what about this Favois, Barry? Do you think it is a match between Goshen and Adagio?
Yeah.
I suppose the problem with Favois is, if you look at his form, he's run in his last 7 races, and he's won 4, been second twice, and 4th once. The biggest field's been 6. So it does sometimes put a question mark over the form.
Yeah, I think it is definitely a match, but I'm done with Goshen. I'm done with Goshen a long time ago. And I get, look, he was impressive last time, back going right-handed. He's won this last year, as you said. I was curious when you mentioned injury. I wasn't aware of that, because I'm an Adagio fan, and I'm not sure how bad the injury was, Mike. You're just after. It's the first I heard of it. But if it was muscular, I'd imagine it wouldn't. Look, would David Pipe be running this horse here if he wasn't right? The yard form is a little bit of a concern for me. But the 5-year-olds and the form of last year, as Ronan mentioned, I'm down on the side of Adagio here. I'm willing to take Goshen on for the simple reason the Great Wood Hurdle, he was carrying top weight, Adagio, in the Great Wood, and I thought it was a really super run. If you look at the first 7 home in the Great Wood, 5 of them have all won this season, so the form is rock solid. You have Marie's Rock, she's won twice. You had obviously the winner himself, West Approach. Adagio was second in the race. West Cork. What did I say?
West Approach.
West Approach. West Cork.
He's used to a different type of Cork. That's the problem.
No Ordinary Joe, I say, has another day in mind. But I'm just trying to figure out who are the other horses in behind Adagio on that occasion. But that's when I looked at it. 5 of the 7, Capron was in there as well. 5 of the first 7 home in the Great Wood, have all won this season. So look, I felt as though it was a great race. He's a very straightforward horse, and I'd say he could be an interesting, I suppose, outsider maybe for the British in the Champion Hurdle. He's a big old price. I think is there 33s available. But maybe as a each way value in terms of an each way champion hurdle bet. Ronan was mentioning Tommy's Oscar on the Monday show, but I think Adagio, I quite like him. Jumps well. He travelled very well in the Great Wood, and he stays well. And I was kind of thinking the 97-day layoff might actually be a positive, giving him more time to strengthen up and come forward. But I'm with him here. I can't wait to see him run. And potentially he's getting weight as well from Goshen, so £3, 11-8. I think it is a match, but I like Adagio.
I'm fascinated by the fact that he had the choice of either going to Newbury last weekend for the Betfair or running in this race. And one of the reasons David's gone to Wincanton is because it's right-handed. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens. That is tomorrow's feature hurdle at Wincanton. Don't forget, I'm going to keep reminding you, subscribe to this great podcast. It's subtitled The Thoughts of Ronan Groome. And also, in a moment, we're going to put the two boys on the spot with their 5 casts. And to give you a bit more of a clue, I'm going to throw it open to both of you. The only stipulation is it must be Saturday. What else has caught your eye, Barry? Just fairly briefly, give us a couple.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple, Mike Vince. In the novice hurdle at Ascot, the 1:15 on Saturday, I mentioned already Dashel Drasher. Jeremy Scott runs a horse by the name of Bally Black in here, who was a big eye catcher in a bumper. He was in our tracker. We did mention him on the Monday show, and he went out and he was a big eye catcher in a bumper in Taunton behind Brave Kingdom, Paul Nichols' Brave Kingdom. He stepped up in trip. That was a novice hurdle at Taunton. He stepped up in trip at Exeter and done the business. He's a nice horse, and I can't wait to see him run. He could be the one as interesting for Gary Moore. The yard is going well. But I reckon it's not priced up at the moment. Bally Black will be near favourite here. I'd say he'll go forward and win again. A real nice type by Scirocco. Obviously keen to see Porticello run this weekend in the juvenile race. He's 2-5. He's not much of a price, but I'm just interested to see him run. And one at Gowran in the 2:55 handicap. Eddie Cawley, Thomas Coyle is not on the show, but Petty King, first run in a handicap. Chris Timmins, the 2:55. Petty King, by the same sire as Footpad. I'm not even going to try pronounce it. Ronan Groome might help me. Creature.
Cracador.
Irish. Surely. Even I know that, and I have no Doyle roots.
Come on, Basil, get your bungabore. What he
did when he was at school. He used to tip horses instead of doing his Latin.
The Swinley Chase. I'm going to give you another one. The Swinley Chase is one of the big handicap haps on the card at Ascot. Fiddler on the Roof is a 9-4 favoured. I love this Hold That Thought for Venetia Williams. I was really impressed by his run at Carlisle, his win at Carlisle. He's disappointed then at Chepstow next time and came back to some level of form, I felt, at Lingfield last time. He's interesting. The are going very well. Big Saturday handicap. Could represent good each-way value. It's a horse called Hold That Thought.
And let's hold the thoughts now of Ronan Groome. A couple from you, mate.
Yeah, I'll go quickly, Mike. I'm over to Haydock, the Grand National Trial. Bristol to May is 8-1 best price here. I backed them yesterday at 10-1. I mean, is this not an outrageous assessment of the Haydock specialist? This is a horse that was sent off 11-4 for Betfair Chase only about 3 months ago. You're getting 8-1 now off a mark of 159 at his course. Haydock heavy is Bristol to May. Nigel Twiston-Davies says if he runs as well as he did at Lingfield, he'll win. And while I'm probably not as optimistic as that, I'd be inclined to roll win with him here, especially at that price of 8-1.
3 Betfair Chases.
His record at Haydock is there. Everyone knows it's probably one of the most obvious things in the form book. But he's got his record reads 5 wins and he was second in the Betfair Chase as well. So he's only £5 higher than his last handicap win at the course as well. So he'd do for me at 8-1. It's still back him now at 8-1. I think he could. I know Secret Reprieve is in there at favourite, and look, he ran okay on his comeback in the Welsh National. Probably was strip fitter now and got to have a chance. But this is Bristol Demise stomping ground. It's the race that Barry talked about, the 225 Ascot, the Swinley race. I wouldn't back him now, but what I have done is backed him for the Grand National. I think there's a good chance if Fiddler on the Roof wins here, and I think I do. He's backed into favour now. He's 9-4. He's my idea of the national winner. I think he could be, come April, we could be talking about him as favourite for the Grand National. I think he can win here and be well treated then come the Grand National now that the weights are out. They've specially kept him back for before the weights or after the weights came out to run him, and he could book himself even into the Gold Cup with a good run here. But down the line, I think the Grand National, I think he can back him at 25-1. That made appeal to me. I backed him this week for the Grand National, so looking forward to see how he goes. And then Gowran Park, just a quick mention for the same race that Barry talked about, Petty King. It's 255. Paul Townend booked by Emmett Mullins to ride a horse called Ernie McCracken. I could see this being very well backed. Finished fourth in the maiden hurdle, handicap debut, 5-year-old, same colours as Cape Gentleman. See, it can be very well backed. So I'll be watching to see what sort of price he comes out at.
Can I just say,
very well back last time, wasn't he? And it didn't work. But
can I just say something, Mike? Can I just put my hands up? Yeah. So just on that, hold that thought. I didn't notice he actually went up to a mark of 140. 140 after his Carlisle win, and he's back down to a mark of 134. It's kind of strange to see a horse given such a hike and then drop back down. There's been a little bit of support for him. Ran well at Ascot last year, going back right-handed. Last 2 runs has been going left-handed. So very interested in him now each way. Hold that thought. He has come for a bit of money in places, so 8-1 in places, but you'll get 10-1. 12-1 in a place. Hold that thought. So each way on him.
Well, the big message, of course, of the weekend is do check the ground conditions, because talk about how they may well change and get considerably softer. We're not tipping the boat race, but there may be 1 or 2 races which won't be far off that. But the time has come. I don't know what Thomas McCoyle is probably tipping a silent horse, but I need to get you lads now to give me your 5 casts. I remember you've got to do 2 things tonight. You've got to put your 5 casts on it, and you've also got to follow and subscribe to Champ.ie. And what I'm going to do is I'll put mine in as well. So we'll do it race by race, and then your 5th one is your wild card from anywhere. So, and let's just keep it to the names. Let us start with the Red Mills Hurdle. 220 Gowran, Barry Doyle.
Quilixios.
And for Mr. Groome?
Saldier.
And I'm going Darasso. It's a good start. 3 different ones.
You madman.
Now, there's only 5 runners. Now, surely we're not going to go 3 different ways here, are we? Red Mills Chase, Gowran 330. Mr. Groome.
Melon.
Mr. Doyle.
Go on then. Chatham Street lad.
You're not going to believe this. The name I've got written down here is Daily Tiger. Okay, let's try the British, shall we? And what wins it? One of the other 2. You know what's going to happen, don't you? Let's go then to the big race at Ascot, the Betfair Ascot Chase, which has the wonderful, probably the first Group 1 in Europe ever to have an off time of 3:38. Ronan.
Fanny Ann Destraval.
Barry.
Dashel Drasher.
And I'm Mr. Fisher. So are we going to agree? It's like a party political broadcast, this. The Kingwell Hurdle. And with surely only 2 possible winners, somebody's got to agree. Barry.
Adagio.
Ronan.
Terrible race for a 5 cast, but I'm going Goshen.
Well, I'm Adagio. So there is some agreement at last. And you can just give a brief explanation of this just to wrap the thing up. your 5th for your 5-cast. And that has to be, as I say, the only stipulation is it must be a race on Saturday. Barry.
Ballyblack in the novice hurdle.
And the time of that race again?
The 1:15 at Ascot.
Ronan.
240 Haydock, the William Hill Grand National Trial, Bristol de Mai, 8-1. And if you don't back it and he wins, you'll be asking yourself, why did I let Bristol de Mai go off at 8-1 on heavy ground at Haydock?
And I'm going to go and pull one completely out of another planet. Ascot, 3 o'clock is the big handicap hurdle on the Ascot card. Very interesting down the bottom lurks a horse called Piccadilly Lily. Sam Welly-Cohen riding for Alan King, horse having its first run for the yard, used to race in France. And if they come from France, they do usually like the ground. Well, we'll see you down the Labour Exchange on Monday. But that is that for this weekend. Oh, no, you want to have a word, do you?
Sorry, Mike. Barry, shall we give away a magazine for the 5-cast?
Oh, go on then. Have you one handy?
Okay, hold on. You talk to Mike about the weather there. Give me 2 seconds.
Is that last week's magazine we're giving away, is it?
Yeah, well, Mike Fitz, I just want to come in here when Ronan is going to dig out some magazines out of the hot press. I want to thank everyone who has reacted. The Make Racing Great Again Champ.ie campaign to get to 2,000 subscribers. We're up past 1.5 anyway, Mike. And just a couple of weeks to go. So that's the target, 2,000 subscribers.
And when they've all lost their money on our tips this week, it'll be down to 800.
And the other thing as well, just to mention, before the Golden Groom comes in.
Now, this must be the Irish Field Cheltenham magazine. I've not even got a copy of this. Is it? It is.
You could.
So, Ronan Groome, can I ask you something? This magazine, Davy Boland has already given up some merchandise for the first person to land the Champ.ie 5-cast. Are you throwing one of these into the mix as well?
Yeah, well, no, I'm not. I'm not as stingy as Davy Boland. No one has to win. No, I don't expecting people to land the 5-cast. What I suggest is leave your 5-cast below, and the most profit made out of the 5-cast done on SP, we'll send you out this brand new, just on the shelves, glossy, beautiful Cheltenham magazine with all the even Barry Doyle's in it, Mike.
Go on, show me the page. I haven't seen it yet. Show me, look.
At least I've stayed out of it again, which is nice.
Show me, look, Ronan. I haven't seen it yet.
I'm still awaiting my copy. Nice things about him. He might send me one. So that is an extra bonus prize. And while Ronan goes reading and looking, it's time to wrap things up for another week. Of course, there'll be lots of Cheltenham news in the interim.
There he is.
Hang on a second. I'm just ringing Scotland Yard Obscene Publications Squad.
Guess who the horse is featured, Mike?
Oh, I can't see, but it could by some coincidence be an Urgemine, could it? Those look like Tony Bloom's colours even from this distance.
Champion Chase winner.
Well, we will see.
But in all seriousness, great magazine. I got to edit it this year. I'm really happy with it. We got Paul Nichols, we got Gordon Elliott, we got William Mullins, Henry de Bromhead, loads of the big owners, Cheveley Park. We've got Barry Maloney, Manila Endo's owner. We've got Tony Keenan doing his expertise in tipping, and we have Simon Rowlands with all his time and loss as well. So it's out now, it's in shops. So if you don't land the 5-cast on Saturday, you can pick it up in a shop. I think it's $5.99 or something along those lines. We'll be giving away 2 more on Monday. It's a Basel on the road to Cheltenham. So
on the road to Cheltenham.
I'll go and rate the dustbin as usual. That's it from this week's Champ.ie podcast. Now, what you're going to do, 2 things. You're going to subscribe. You're going to go and back all those horses. And we'll see you next week when the countdown moves up a gear again, because, of course, we're going to be only just over 3 weeks to the Cheltenham Festival. What a thought that is from us all. Bye-bye for now.
Inside the final 150 yards, this is a special year, and it's a Hattons full of grace. And it's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by